Let's talk about politics. Now don't worry, I'm not going to tell you how if you are liberal, you're just stupid, or if you are a right-wing conservative, you are useless. Don't worry, I'm not going to go over anything like that in this video. This isn't meant to be an actual political video in the sense of basically giving my opinions in a political sphere. This is actually a video talking about the negative effects that, in my opinion, politics has on most people's lives, and in particular, my life. I do feel like, in my opinion anyway, obviously this is my opinion, that politics as a whole, it just negatively affects too many people's lives, and people let it take over their life too much. And over basically the last 6 months or so, I really made it an actual choice in my life to turn around and be like, you know what, I need to detach from this, because otherwise I'm going to be going insane and getting depressed. Because the amount of stuff that you have to try and keep on top of, the outrage culture that comes with all of it, it's just something that really most of us do not need. Now, I'd say my starting point when it came to learning about politics and that sort of thing is probably the same as a lot of people, at least in the digital age now. I don't know how it was beforehand. Obviously, could have been very similar. However, when it comes to how it was when I was younger, when I was probably in about year 11, so about 16 years of age, I started learning a little bit more about politics through things like YouTube videos. Obviously, that then heavily dictates on a 16-year-old's mind of what political views they end up having. And I know for a fact that a lot of my opinions on how I view the world and everything like that comes from that point of my life. However, I have grown a lot since then and tried to take in a lot more people's opinions and try to understand why people come to their different conclusions about life in general. But for me, to be honest, it wasn't until about 2020 when my actual full start into politics really started to take a swing. I think a lot of people could probably resonate with this, which was during 2020, you kind of had the height of everything political. You had COVID going on, which spurred loads of different opinions. You then also had the protests and riots going on. You then had everything else in the latter half. In the UK, you had tons of scandals going on. Literally, like, if it wasn't already like one diverse country when it comes to opinions, it was getting worse, and the gap was just becoming bigger and bigger between them, because everyone was becoming so politicized and just so into their own camps that nobody was willing to discuss anything unless either side was having a go at each other. And that's one issue, is we look at everything as two different sides, and that kind of ends up spurring our opinions to believe in people that we don't necessarily agree with. If I, for example, like any former political commentator, but I don't agree with one of their opinions, because I kind of agree with one of their opinions, a lot of the time the herd mentality of most people will basically go, you know what, yeah, I don't necessarily fully agree with it, but I don't necessarily fully disagree with it, so I'm just going to go, yes, I 100% agree with you on whatever your stance is. And that ends up kicking into people this very much just, one, their opinions are not their opinions, but also it means that people just end up unhappier because they end up believing something that deep down they don't actually believe in, which means you're lying to yourself. Now, I would probably say it wasn't until around about a year ago where I really started to notice fully of how much this was impacting my life. It was making me more miserable, it made me more argumentative towards family members, towards co-workers, towards literally just the general person. If someone wanted to have a conversation about it, I would jump in there and be like, okay, yes, I will argue with you about whatever it is. I like to play devil's advocate quite a lot, and people find that very irritating sometimes. But it also led into massive issues when it came to my political views, because I would literally just be willing to jump into that conversation with anyone and everyone. And that doesn't end up going well when pretty much a lot of people will disagree with you, because you have one side's opinion over another. But when I talk about stopping caring about politics and why, in my opinion, I had to, and why I think a lot of other people should as well, isn't actually because I think that you shouldn't care about social issues or about general issues to do with politics and these different scandals and that sort of thing. However, I think a lot of people need to detach themselves. I know plenty of people who are just angry all the time. Their pent-up anger from politics is ridiculous. They will just have a conversation with me about something briefly, it then leads into politics somehow, and I don't even know how it gets to that. Like, I used to be the person who was always bringing up politics and looking at everything through a political lens. And now, because I've detached myself, I can obviously see it in others, but I come to the conclusion of like, how does it get from this conversation about one thing to a conversation about another, and you are just angry? It isn't like it's a, oh well, it's a bit annoying, that's what it is, just anger. And I think one thing that doesn't help is obviously social media and politics, I think, really work in tandem very well together. It's a great marketing tactic. Both of them feed into the outrage culture. Both sides want to be outraged at one another. Social media loves pushing outrage culture to people because it gets more money for them. But overall, people who just live in that life, in my opinion anyway, they don't seem like they're that happy. Yes, you might be happy caring about every single political issue under the sun. However, I just don't feel like it works for me. And to me, I think a lot of people could probably find the same resolution as I did, which is when you try and make a forceful step back. For example, for myself, I just started clicking not interested in seeing this content on anything political, and overall my life feels better. I no longer care about it all. I'm not even caught up to date on most of the updated stuff about politics, which you may say is just living in ignorance and just being blissful, when in reality for me it's what I know works for myself. I don't want to be in that world all the time. To me, my opinion, it doesn't matter enough when it comes to this. What is me going to be talking about something going to do to impact an actual massive issue? Yes, you could use the argument of, well, it takes loads of people's voices for something to change, but really, if I don't care about it, then I'm just being disingenuous to myself. And all I'm doing at that point is just trying to look for social validation. I just don't find politics in general something that is actually going to progress me as a person forward, and personally, I see it a lot in people I know. May be different for you and other people you know, they may be just detached completely. For example, one of my siblings, just straight up, doesn't even know anything about politics most of the time, completely detached entirely, and the other one is completely absorbed by it all the time. They're very polarizing different versions of where I stand now, which is I'm not necessarily completely gone out of all of it, I'm also not entirely absorbed by it. I sit somewhere in the middle where I feel like it works for me and I'm starting to use something to my advantage instead of the other way around. Personally, if you're someone like me who has hit a point where you realize how little politics actually gives you towards your life and what you want to do and where you want to be, then honestly just try and take a step away. Take the action into your hands instead of believing everything's outside of your control. Because if you actually start taking an impact on your life and basically start going, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to start saying I don't want to see this content. Start unfollowing the political ideologues that you follow. Because really, do you need their opinions all the time so that you can gain your opinion? No. Really, you can get on with your life generally without even knowing this exists. Think about how happy we were as children when we had no clue about any of the political issues. Yes, that is complete ignorance is bliss side of things. However, we need to reach a middle ground of those two things, because we don't want to be consumed by the almighty thing that is politics, and we also don't want to have complete ignorance to any social issues and any issues in the world going on, because if we do that, nothing will change for the good and nothing will ever happen that actually helps people. We need to sit somewhere in the middle. This video isn't telling you to not care about social issues. This video isn't trying to tell you that, oh well, your opinion just simply doesn't matter. For me, I just don't think that my opinion matters enough. So really, I don't care as much anymore, simply because it makes me angrier when I talk about politics. It makes me more argumentative. It makes me less of who I actually want to be, which is someone I don't even know yet. So really, it is the case of, for me, I had to take the step away. I had to start making actual steps to be like, okay, let's walk away from this. I will be happier in the future for having done so. And for me, I can tell since the last 6 months where I actually started implementing strategies like unfollowing people, unsubscribing from channels that talk about politics, just anytime I see content that comes up in my feed that's political, I just say, I want to see less of this. Because by doing so, it means that I'm a bit more in control of what I'm seeing, and that I don't want to necessarily never see politics. If I want to see politics and keep up to date, I'll just click the news tab on Google. I don't need to constantly see it on my social media pages. I don't need to see it when I load up YouTube. I go to those websites to escape what I'm doing in the moment. I'm not going to them to learn more about the real world issues that are going on. Now anyway, let me know where you stand with this entire thing, because I do feel like a lot of people, there'll be a lot of people I think that agree with me in the sense of politics at its core just kind of makes everything worse, I think, because when you start looking at everything through a political lens, it just goes off the rails. For example, I had a comment on my Is Gaming Dying video telling me that I was being political for a statement saying that in the UK it hardly snows anymore, because I was reminiscing on the times that I was a child and it actually snowed in the UK, at least down south where I live. I was told I was being political. To me, I was like, what? This is ridiculous. So you're telling me I can't even mention snow without being told that I'm political? Like, to me, when you're that far in and you look at everything through this political lens, if someone mentions anything that comes close to the idea of global warming, if you mention anything that's close to, let's say, sexualities, all these different things, people just go off the rails. And to me, when you're at that far and you're that far down the rabbit hole, you do need to take a moment to take a step back, take an actual breather, and realize that yes, your opinions are your opinions, you're allowed to have them, but they're overriding who you actually are and who you want to be, which is generally a happier person. I think most of us just want to be happy in life. Politics doesn't do that. Now anyway, I hope you guys did enjoy this video. It's a bit of a different one. Normally I don't do these rambly style videos. I did have a full script, however I ended up just like going off of it purely because this topic is something that I'd rather talk off my head about, even though I know I'm going to mess up things. I know that people are going to take what I'm saying out of context at times, so I know that. But if you guys did make it to the end, let me know what your thoughts are really on politics. Do you keep up to date all the time? Are you someone who is down the rabbit hole of I need to know about every single thing every single politician is talking about, or are you someone who simply doesn't care? You want to live in a cabin in the woods and be away from society in general. Let me know who you are, where you sit on that spectrum, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good one.